One evening, a scary dude with a sword showed up in Caravan Village. People called him Carlos, but honestly, he was more like a storm with legs. One boy named Arhan watched in shock as the bastard cut down everyone, including his own parents. In just one moment, Arhan's whole world was destroyed. Like, everything he loved was just wiped out. When the killing was over, only one kid was still breathing, Arhan. Left with just pain and rage, the poor guy decided he was going to get revenge on the man who ruined his life. But don't expect some classic hero training arc here. Nah, Arhan's journey started with something way more insane. He grabbed a sword, heated it up until it glowed red, and then, what the hell, dude? He actually swallowed the blade in the burning steel itself. Seriously, who does that? Before this wild moment, the scene faded back to earlier days. There was Arhan's dad, showing him a portrait of someone really important. His dad told him to listen up because this was a non-negotiable caravan family lesson. According to the old man, their family used to be top tier. 200 years ago, nobody could touch them. Their ancestors were knights, the kind that people called gods of war. The king loved them, everyone respected them, and they were famous for being sword masters, like the chosen ones of the blade. The name caravan used to mean invincible guardians, just saying it made people look impressed. Arhan's dad made it super clear that, as the future boss of the caravan family, the protagonist had to be proud of the steel blood running through his body. His dad wanted him to make the caravan name great again and stand tall as a real protector. According to the old man, this was the whole point of the caravan family. But then, the story snapped back to Arhan's own thoughts in the present. He was thinking that maybe those heroic stories from his dad were just a bit, well, fake. After all, fallen nobles love to hype up the good old days, kind of like bragging about being a legend in some game, when, in reality, you're stuck at noob level now. If those caravan legends were true, would they really be stuck in some tiny, boring place, farming with normal people? It's a sunny day in the wheat fields. Our boy worked hard harvesting wheat with the other villagers. He thought those family stories had a ton of plot holes. The founder in the picture didn't look like him or his dad at all, no matter how hard he tried to see it. And that super shiny sword next to the portrait? It looked way too new to be hundreds of years old, like someone just bought it at a fancy shop. And the biggest oof? There wasn't even a mention of their supposed ancestor, Liam Caravan, in any of the kingdom's history books. Put all that together, and our boy figured the legend was pretty much just a fake story to make the family feel better. Things felt peaceful again, as some of the villagers called out to Arhan, using the title Young Master, and invited him for a snack. Our MC smiled at them, feeling happy. Even if the caravan family wasn't special anymore, everyone still cared about him. He loved living together with these people. This was the caravan he wanted, just being together, nothing epic. The peaceful days made danger feel like something that only happened in faraway places. When the afternoon was almost over, Arhan told everyone they'd pretty much finished today's farm work. He said he'd go to the next village's market to pick up things they needed. He reminded the others not to be late, and mentioned he'd grab some apples for Kun. Since the guy had been whining about wanting fruit, Kun was pumped about that. Our hero also said Marino's youngest daughter was having a birthday soon, so if he saw a cute doll, he'd buy one. Marino was surprised, and wondered how Arhan even knew that. But our boy just acted like, duh, of course he knew. He was the next lord, after all. Then he told everyone he was heading out and would see them later. As Arhan left, people told him to take care. Once he was gone, they started saying nice things about him. Kun got everyone together and told them to finish up so they'd be ready for their regular meeting with the Lord. Everything still felt normal, like it was just another day. And then boom, out of nowhere, disaster struck. Kun's face got slashed open in one hit. A woman nearby was killed just as fast. Panic hit the group hard. Some random guy with a sword showed up and said this territory had to be erased. The villagers, shaking with fear, tried to ask who he was, but he didn't care. He just cut them down one by one, fast and cold, like he was a robot and they were just numbers. That night, our MC came back, and what he saw stopped him cold. The ground was covered with the bodies of everyone from the village. He was frozen, totally shocked. His butler ran up, crying and trying to cover Arhan's eyes, begging him not to look and calling him young master. The butler could barely even speak. He said a mysterious swordsman showed up out of the blue, saying that caravan had to be erased, and those words felt just as sharp as his blade. Our poor guy broke down and just cried. The story made it clear that one guy with a sword had stormed in without warning, swinging his blade with zero mercy, killing half the people in the territory. Half of the caravan was wiped out in just a moment. It all happened because of a sword master, a walking disaster, who turned a perfect, peaceful day into a nightmare soaked in blood. Our MC finally made it back home, but bro, it was just more of the same nightmare. Dead bodies everywhere, silence, and the air was thick with that awful smell of death. When he stepped inside, he saw his mother suddenly show up in front of him. For a split second, he almost believed things would be okay. She ran to him, hugged him super tight, and said she was just so happy he was safe. That hug made Arhan feel warm for a second. Like, maybe nothing bad could touch him as long as his mom was there. But yeah, life was not about to give our boy a break. At that exact moment, he realized that the real horror was just getting started and that this nightmare wasn't over. He remembered the Sword Master, the same guy who turned half the caravan territory into a bloodbath in no time at all. For some weird reason, the killer didn't touch our hero's parents. Instead, he just left a creepy message. He said he would come back in 1 month, and if the rest of them wanted to survive, they'd better get out before then. Arhan's father totally lost it after hearing that. The old man started crying, asking what they ever did to deserve this, and why the hell they were chosen for so much pain. The sword master just looked bored, and told him he was only following orders. Then he just walked out, not caring at all. After the sword master's words, panic spread. The people who survived started packing and leaving as fast as they could. One by one, all the villagers ditched caravan in hopes of staying alive. Honestly, that looked like the only smart move. But not for the caravan family. Arhan's dad was chained down by his job as the lord, and all that responsibility was crushing him. Later, our hero's dad was alone, smashing his head again and again into a bookshelf while clutching some old book like it was his only friend. The poor guy was whispering to himself, acting like he was still some legendary knight who once took down dragons and saved kingdoms. He kept saying it was his duty to destroy the next evil that was coming, and he swore on everything that he would never run away. The spotlight then moved to Arhan's mom. She was way calmer than anyone else. She told our MC that the butler had gotten a carriage ready and that he had to get out of the caravan right now. She wanted him to leave with the butler and go as far away as possible. Our boy freaked out when he heard that. He begged her to come with him, saying they should take dad and escape together. But his mom shook her head and told him that the Lord could never run away. His dad, as the head of the caravan family, had to stay and face the enemy, no matter what. She said she was going to stay with her husband until the very end. Our protagonist just fell apart. He started crying, saying he couldn't do it alone, begging his mom to run with him. She listened to everything and then dropped a bombshell. She told him those old family stories about great knights and invincible guardians were just made-up lies. They weren't real at all. She made Arhan promise her one thing: never pick up a sword again, no matter what. She wanted him to live just for himself and forget about revenge, even if the whole world went crazy. Right then, the butler bustled in and said the carriage was ready. Arhan's mom told the butler to take her son as far away as possible. Our poor guy was desperate, yelling that he didn't want to go alone, but the butler picked him up and dragged him out anyway. Before they left, his mom told him one last time that she loved him. Then our boy's mom went back to comfort his dad, who was all bloody from hitting his head. She hugged him quietly and told him not to hurt himself anymore, promising she would stay by his side. While the carriage rolled through the night, the butler tried to talk some sense into Arhan. He said he knew everything was awful, but the protagonist had to get through it somehow. He told him that the sword master wasn't a person, but more like a natural disaster. There was nothing regular people could do about something like that. The butler said Arhan had to accept what happened and forget it if he wanted to survive. He was sure that our hero's parents would want him to keep living, no matter what. But the butler suddenly noticed something. Arhan was gone. The boy had jumped out of the carriage and was already running back. Our hero's head was spinning. He told himself he could not just leave his parents. He thought, sure, the swordmaster called himself a Calamity or whatever, but he is just a man. They could bleed and die if you hit them in the right spot. Arhan had even managed to get his hands on some deadly poison over the past month. He believed that if he could just hit the swordmaster with one poisoned arrow, he could save his family. But when Arhan got there, the scene was just pure horror. His dad's head had been stuck on a banner for everyone to see, and his mom was lying dead beneath it. The swordmaster looked down at Arhan and asked, kind of laughing, if he had come back just to die. Our boy tried to fight, pulling out his crossbow and aiming, desperate to kill this monster. But suddenly, he hallucinated that the swordmaster sliced his throat. The crossbow dropped from his hand, and his neck felt like it was on fire. The swordmaster told Arhan that since he wasn't even 18 yet, he'd let him live for now. But he warned that no matter where Arhan ran, he would be found and killed someday. The caravan family, he said, would disappear, just like that. With nothing left, Arhan sank to the ground next to his mom's body, hugging her and sobbing his heart out. And honestly, our boy knew it. On that day, he was totally powerless. He couldn't do a thing. In that one moment, he lost everything. A whole year went by after our boy buried everyone he ever cared about. During that time, his world just got smaller and smaller, until only one thing was left: revenge. That idea became his entire life. Day and night, the only thing on his mind was getting payback. And the guy he wanted? Not just some random loser, but the most terrifying sword guy on the whole continent. Carlos, the boss with 10 swords. People said Carlos kept the kingdom safe, like he was some kind of hero or even a god. Everyone loved him. But to Arhan, that scumbag was just a nightmare who destroyed everything. But here's the thing. Even after all his searching, our MC never figured out who gave the order for the massacre or why his family had to die like that. He kept thinking there must be some huge secret in the Caravan family. Something so big, it was worth erasing them all. But no matter how hard he searched, one thing never changed. The people he lost were never coming back. So his mind just kept going back to that one awful night. One night, something totally wild happened. Right in front of him, a strange blue light showed up, glowing so weirdly that our boy thought maybe his mind had finally snapped. He couldn't even move. He was so shocked and scared. But then he saw it. The old family sword was shining like crazy. And then, a huge wave of power blasted out of the old portrait hanging on the wall. Next thing he knew, the founder of the Caravan family, yeah, the legendary Liam Caravan, the man everyone said was just a story, stood there as real as you or me. Rain was pouring outside, but inside, Arhan was losing it, trying to figure out if this was a dream or if he'd just gone nuts. It felt way too real just to be his imagination. The founder checked him out, seeing all the chaos, hate, and rage boiling up inside the poor guy. Our boy couldn't even move, but he forced himself to ask if this was really Liam, the original Caravan boss. The answer came and, yeah, this was definitely the big man himself, the greatest swordmaster who ever lived. Our MC was not happy, bro. He wanted to know why this dude showed up now, when it was already too late. Why didn't Liam do something before his family got wiped out? Why hide until everything was gone? But Liam just stayed chill, saying this moment could only come after Arhan proved he had the guts. The ancestor explained that he'd been watching Arhan for a whole year, seeing how he trained like a maniac, never letting go of his sword, never quitting, even though he had pretty lame talent and was right on the edge of falling apart. Our protagonist's hands never shook, not even once. That's what Liam needed to see. The hatred and pain in Arhan's eyes finally got deep enough. This man also admitted that even he was done waiting. The bloodlust for revenge against Carlos was burning him up inside, too. Then Liam hit him with the most brutal truth on the continent. Only a swordmaster could kill another swordmaster. It didn't matter how hard our MC trained as a regular guy. He would never catch up to Carlos. Swordmasters were on a different level, and that master was even higher than they all. If things stayed the same, the jerk would keep getting stronger, while Arhan would always stay weak. That truth almost crushed our hero. He just stood there, totally speechless, thinking about how far behind he was. The idea that Carlos could keep living like a hero, while Arhan stayed powerless? Dude, that burned. The fear and humiliation were back, but this time, the future was different. This ancestor said he was going to guide Arhan himself. With his help, the protagonist could become a blade strong enough to judge the killer who destroyed his family. There was only one way, the Caravan family's secret method. And get this, Arhan was supposed to eat the old family sword. Yeah, you heard me. He was supposed to devour it. That was the real inheritance. And honestly, he was seriously confused. He was called the heir to the blood of steel, but he had no idea what that even meant. Then, the scene changed. Suddenly, he was in a dark forge, surrounded by piles of weapons, watching a sword get heated until it was glowing, white-hot. Liam explained the real truth about the Caravan family. Their blood was mixed with dwarves. Arhan was exhausted, staring into the fire, but listened as the dude said the first Caravan was a half-dwarf, and even though the dwarf traits had faded, one thing stayed. His family could eat swords and steal the memories and skills of anyone who used them before. That was why there were so many great swordmasters in their line. That was their real strength. Our boy could barely believe it. It sounded totally nuts. Dwarves and eating swords? But Liam made it clear. This was the real deal. And if Arhan wanted revenge, he had to do it. The method was simple but brutal. Heat up the sword until it's soft, then chew it up and swallow it. Even just thinking about it made the protagonist feel sick with fear. For a second, he wondered if this was all just a crazy dream, or if some angry ghost had taken over his body. But the rage inside him was too strong. Even if it was impossible, even if it killed him, he'd do it for a shot at revenge. So, our guy grabbed the burning hot sword and bit down as hard as he could. The blade shattered in his mouth. Instantly, the worst pain ever exploded inside him. Fire burned through his whole body. Flames wrapped around him, and he felt like he was being melted from the inside out. He held on, even as every piece of him screamed, and he kept chewing and swallowing the burning metal. When it finally ended, what was left of the sword just fell to the ground, all the magic drained away. He held his throat in pain, and our MC collapsed, totally wiped out. His body twisted on the floor, every muscle fighting the pain as energy ripped through him and changed him forever. He tried not to pass out, holding onto consciousness with his teeth clenched tight. All at once, the memories of that massacre rushed back. The faces of his mom and dad, his home, and every second of pain. And in the middle of it all, the face of Carlos, the monster who took everything, burned itself into Arhan's soul forever. Even though he was still burning up inside, he kept chomping the sword and forced himself to keep going. Right then, in the middle of all those flames and that nightmare pain, our MC made himself a promise. No matter what, he was going to become a sword master. And when that happened, he was going to find the guy who destroyed his whole family and put an end to him for good. The next thing you know, it's already morning. Everything looked peaceful and easy, but, bro, it did not last long. Out of nowhere, our hero woke up, screaming like he just escaped from hell. His heart was going crazy, and he was gasping for air, totally freaked out. When he finally calmed down, he checked his body all over. He was shocked. He had no burns, no cuts, not even a scratch. For a second, he wondered if that whole thing, eating the sword and all, was just a super messed up dream. But then, he glanced at the floor. Right there, plain as day, was the sword hilt, the only thing left of that blade he swallowed. No way, that was a dream, dude. That was real. Suddenly, he felt something weird in the room. Some invisible presence was checking him out, judging him hard for being so weak on the outside. But at the same time, this presence gave our poor guy some props, said his willpower was insane, way stronger than most people could ever handle. That's when the ghost of an old man showed up right in front of him. The spirit explained that many caravan kids in the past tried this and just gave up because the pain was too much. He told our MC to stop pretending this was a story or a hallucination and face the truth of who he really was. Finally, Arhan got it. He knelt down and said, for real, that he was Arhan Caravan. He showed respect to the old man, knowing this was the family founder, the guy who started it all. The founder told him to call him master from then on, because that's what every caravan had to do if they wanted to learn. Arhan didn't argue. He just accepted it, even though he still felt super weak from everything that happened. While he was kneeling, he wondered if his ancestors' crazy plan had actually worked. He remembered that Liam, the founder, promised he would get strong from eating the sword. But right now, he felt almost the same as before. Liam's face went hard, and he told our boy there was a problem, a big one, and it was Arhan's own fault. At first, our MC was lost, but the master explained that the caravan bloodline was much weaker now than in the old days, so the sword-eating power was almost gone. Arhan wasn't even finished absorbing the sword yet. His body couldn't handle it all at once. Our boy just sat there, taking the heat. He didn't whine or freak out, just accepted that his body was weak. That actually surprised Liam. He didn't expect Arhan to be that chill about it. Even so, our hero was just happy there was still a chance. If he could figure out how to finish digesting that power, he could really get stronger. That thought lit up his face. This founder was impressed, laughing and saying Arhan was already thinking like a sword master. Then Liam explained that the best training came from weapons that had seen many battles. He told Arhan to take him somewhere with a bunch of old, beat-up weapons. So off they went to a weapon graveyard, a creepy, dark place filled with broken swords and old battle gear. He said he would pick out the right sword himself. The master explained that this place was perfect for necromancers, since all kinds of junk from the slums ended up here. There were so many battered weapons, it was a goldmine for someone starting out. He remembered how he himself used to eat swords in places just like this. He told stories about chewing up weapons, covered in the blood of dead soldiers, anything to get stronger, because the world was brutal, and only the tough survived. Looking around, Liam got all nostalgic, thinking about the wars he fought to protect people. He said that even after everyone's gone, something always gets left behind. Suddenly, in the middle of all that junk, one sword started glowing with a crazy golden light. He locked onto it right away and told Arhan to go get it. This, he said, was the next sword Arhan had to swallow. Another month slipped by. Under the full moon, inside an empty, busted-up mansion, a gang of random dudes showed up. They looked around, didn't see anyone, and figured this was going to be the easiest job ever. Some thought the place used to be a lab. Others said it was just a ruined rich guy's house. They could still smell the money in the air. Two of these idiots started celebrating, saying nobody lived there now, so it was free for the taking. But one guy started getting sus and started checking the place more closely. Another dude noticed the house had fancy clothes, as a noblewoman lived there. That pretty much proved it. Someone important used to be here. One guy actually grabbed a woman's dress and, bro, smelled it like a total creep. Another bald dude got even grosser. He shoved his hand down his pants, licked his sword, and talked about getting more pleasure soon. These fools started fighting each other just to sniff the dress, then ripped through the house looking for a painting of the woman. That's when Arhan showed up. He told them to stop messing around. He said his mom loved everything neat and tidy, and she hated it when things got trashed. He told them to put everything back, and said maybe they could just talk it out instead. One of the goons was super bored and made fun of him, saying he must be the owner's kid and whining that there wasn't even a daughter here. Arhan stayed calm and asked if they were just looking for food or a place to crash. He said they could hang around as neighbors, if that's what they wanted. But the bald man got pissed. He said only an idiot would come out instead of hiding, and told Arhan he must have a death wish. Then, this tough guy charged right at him. Our hero didn't wait. He drove his sword straight into the bald guy's stomach. Bro, he made it very clear. These guys were not welcome in his house. Suddenly, he thought back to the days after he took the thin sword. Arhan was standing in front of a fireplace, the flames blazing hard and making the whole room warm. He was staring at a new sword he just got. But, bro, this thing looked more like a super thin needle than a real weapon. He started doubting himself, thinking there was no way you were supposed to eat something that flimsy. But his old ancestor, the ghostly grandpa, wasn't having it. He explained that this sword wasn't made for big fights or blocking hits. Nope, it was born for one purpose only, to stab one spot and end someone, fast and clean. The blade looked weak, but it was all about killing in one shot, and if you hesitated, you were done for. The protagonist still thought the whole idea was kinda weird, like, wouldn't a spear work better for that sort of thing? But the master just smirked, knowing something deeper. For a guy like Arhan, whose body was still weak, the memories inside this blade would be crazy valuable. Then, the ancestor started telling the story behind the sword. The last person who used it was a girl with an even weaker body than our heroes, but she still managed to cut down more than 200 enemies all by herself. She fought like a demon until her last breath. So, the old man told Arhan to show some respect. This little piece of metal was light, but it carried a ton of pain, blood, and pure determination. Our MC got serious and put the thin sword into the flames, ready to eat it like last time. He knew that by grabbing hold of the sword's memories, he'd get more than just power. He'd get a whole life's worth of experience. As the heat spread and the sword began to glow, he felt those memories hit him like a truck. Suddenly, he was living someone else's past. There was a mansion on fire, burning so hot it looked like hell. Crawling out of the smoke was a 10-year-old girl named Mary, her whole life destroyed in minutes. Her parents were gone, nothing left but ashes. She barely made it out alive and honestly wished she hadn't. With nowhere to go, she got dumped in an orphanage where everyone worshipped the fire goddess. Yeah, you heard me. Fire had ruined her life, and now the people around her said it was holy. Total nightmare. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw her scarred face and was reminded she'd never truly escaped the flames. The other kids at the orphanage whispered about her behind her back, calling her a monster. She had to deal with being alone and hated, day after day. It got so bad that Mary started wishing she could just die and be done with it all. But then, something wild happened. Mary saw a guy swinging a sword outside. This dude, named Hegel, and was old and kinda clumsy, but his moves got her attention like nothing ever had. It was the first time in forever that she forgot about all her pain. So she walked up and told Hegel she wanted to learn how to use the sword. He was skeptical and didn't believe she could even lift a weapon, but he gave her a chance. He took her to a secret spot with a barrel full of swords and told her if she could swing one, he'd teach her. She barely hesitated, went for the thinnest blade, her eyes on fire with determination. She was ready to do anything to get stronger and maybe, just maybe, get her life back. Now Mary stood in front of her teacher, sword in hand, the start of her whole new journey. That's when Arhan snapped back to reality. He was in the middle of the room with all those dumb intruders, his sword already stabbed deep into one of them. The shock was real, blood was everywhere, and nobody dared say a word. The air in the room turned dangerous. His ancestor was watching from afar, checking out what Arhan had just done. The old man knew he had only done boring stamina training all month. No, real sword moves. But that perfect deadly strike, that wasn't luck, bro. Those memories from the sword were working their magic. This was the big moment. Arhan's true journey was starting right then. He took a deep breath, grabbed the sword tighter, and took a serious stance, ready to show what being a caravan really meant. The spot where he hit the intruder was honestly insane. It was a tiny spot between the ribs, almost impossible to get unless you were a total pro. There was no way a rookie like him should have landed that shot. He knew the only reason it happened was because of that sword he ate a month ago, and because of Mary, the girl who owned it before him. Right then, Mary's life flashed through his head again. He saw how Hegel trained her, not with rules, but with real-life experience. He taught her to fight in her own way, to survive no matter what. For a girl who used to freeze up at the sight of fire, this new style of fighting turned her into a legend. She respected her master more than anything and followed his lessons with her whole heart. When Hegel got sick and was dying, he told her that someday she'd have to leave the orphanage and live her own life. She stayed with him to the very end, holding his hand as he passed away, making sure he was never alone. After that, Mary left the only home she ever knew. She went out into the real world and made a name for herself fast. People in the underworld started talking about her, scared of both her sword and her reputation. She wondered if they feared her blade or just the fact that she was a girl taking down dudes in a brutal business. In time, she earned a name that everyone whispered about, the Stitching Gypsy. And that's the crazy power our hero Arhan just inherited. Bro, things were about to get really interesting. Back in the chaos, our boy finally figured out what his ancestor meant by real digestion. No more faded, weird memories. Now Mary's thoughts and moves felt like they belonged to him. The thug on the ground wasn't begging for a second chance anymore. He was just begging for his life. But Arhan was ice cold, bro. His hands clenched around the sword and his face went stone. He didn't pause, didn't even flinch. He made sure that guy would not get up again. Some voice inside his head told him to finish things completely. No half measures allowed. When the body dropped, our MC noticed something wild. That was his first actual kill. But here's the freaky part. He felt nothing. No guilt, no excitement, just pure focus. He knew the only reason he'd won tonight was that everyone had underestimated him. Luck wasn't going to save him next time. And he got that loud and clear. Looking around, our hero realized the rest of the goons hadn't moved an inch. Even though they had the numbers, nobody attacked. He wondered why, but the answer slapped him in the face right away. They were frozen solid, scared out of their minds. The old ghost explained that what Arhan just did was way above rookie level. That move didn't just kill a guy, it broke the other's brains. Suddenly, he wasn't some weak kid anymore. He was a monster, a blade demon straight out of a nightmare. Understanding that, Arhan cooked up a quick plan. He drew his sword with everything he had, aiming at the crowd. While they were still in shock, he rushed in for the attack. That was all it took to crack their nerves. One dude freaked out and charged at him, swinging like a lunatic. But our boy dodged easily, slipped right past, and got behind the guy faster than anyone could track. Next thing you know, this guy's neck was pierced, and blood splattered on Arhan's face. No holding back, no mercy. Another thug tried to get brave and came at the protagonist, but he was just as slow. The attack missed, and he punished him hard. A quick hit to the side, then a deadly stab straight to the arm. It was over before anyone could scream. Silence fell across the room. That girl's wild past flashed again in his head. She once fought a monster of a man, but she never hesitated. What made her scary was her dancer's flexibility. She could bend, twist, and attack from anywhere, hitting all the weak spots. Her style was all about ending things fast. Clean, silent, and final. When Arhan snapped back to the present, only one guy was left standing. This poor dude shook so much that the dagger in his hand rattled. He kept staring at our hero like he was no longer human, more like a demon pulled out of some fairy tale nightmare. Later that night, under the full moon, the forest was dead, silent and creepy as hell. Our MC was out digging graves, burying the dudes he just wrecked. Guess being a killer means doing your own cleanup. As he finished up, his ghostly ancestor appeared, watching him with those serious eyes. The old man said Arhan's stamina was so good now that he could swing all night and never get tired. 4 bandits weren't even a real fight. The founder explained that the more danger there was, the stronger the caravan blood burned in his veins. Suddenly, everything made sense to Arhan. All those weird feelings, that strange flexibility, now he got it. Mary's memories had gone from fuzzy to crystal clear, especially when the fight got real. The more he understood his enemies, the stronger he became. That's what real digestion meant. Fighting brought out the power hidden inside him. And she wasn't just about skill, she had wild resolve, the kind that took on the whole world. The ancestor reminded him that, when it comes to swords, he never lies. But he also warned that the pain ahead was going to get so rough, Arhan would look back on tonight and think it was a good time. The trials to come, way worse. Still, our MC doubled down, fist tight and heart locked in. No matter what, he was going to keep moving forward. Time passed, and Arhan's life turned into a non-stop training hell. One day, you could find him clinging to the side of some insane cliff, hands raw, muscles screaming. The whole mountain looked impossible, and the grind was almost too much. Our MC started to wonder if it was even worth it, if breaking his body really mattered for revenge. That's when the founder asked him again, where all that fire from last night had gone. The ghost explained that doubting yourself isn't a weakness for Arhan, it's just who he is, and someday, he'll overcome it. For now, he gets some answers. Turns out the sword path was split into 5 stages. It starts at beginner, then sword walker, sword runner, sword expert, and finally, at the very top, the state of achieving the mind sword, the sword master. That level was so legendary that all the great knights bowed to it. Our hero realized he hadn't even started. You needed the prerequisite just to take the first step, and he wasn't there yet. The ancestor agreed, saying this brutal training was just to get him to beginner level. The real goal? To forge something called a mana heart. That blew Arhan's mind. Most people just get one from a potion or with basic knight training. Even regular self-defense nobles could wake one up. But here he was, risking his life for it, hanging off a damn cliff. The ghost knew he was pissed, but explained that the caravan blood was different. It was imbued with the power of steel, so a regular heart couldn't handle it. If Arhan wanted to go beyond normal people, he needed a heart that nothing could scratch. A true heart of steel. There was only one way to get it. Push his body to the edge, over and over, until he was almost passing out every single time. Out of all the caravan kids in history, only a few survived that torture. The ones who did, they became sword masters, legends with power everyone feared. Our boy was hanging from the cliff, fingers slipping, looking like he was about to fall any second. But even then his eyes were on fire, he just wasn't going to give up. His ghost ancestor saw this and gave a rare smile, letting him know that, yeah, everything he'd said about the sword stuff was for real. That was all Arhan needed to get totally hyped up. He swore to himself that when he finally made his mana heart, it was going to put everyone else's to shame. Night rolled in after that. The story jumped all the way to a wild tavern in a place called Campbell Village. The place was packed, drinks were flowing, and gossip was everywhere. Everyone kept whispering about Caravan Village, the one Arhan came from. That place had been a ghost town for over a year. Bandits tried going there, but not one of those idiots ever came back. Some people at the bar said there were monsters in the ruins, while others talked about spooky, evil magic. Whatever anyone believed, one thing was clear. Step into Caravan Village, and you're done. At one dark corner table, a dude in a hood sat alone, listening to all the rumors. He coughed up blood, which he covered with his napkin. As he wiped his mouth, he figured out the truth. Something crazy was living in Caravan Village, and it was way scarier than any story. Back with our MC, he explained how he kept up the cliff training, but now he was only using his left hand. Even on days when he was totally tired from kicking out random intruders at the mansion, he still did it. Even when his muscles were burning so bad he could barely move, he never missed. He pushed himself harder than ever, day after day. A month went by, just like that. If you were judging him by whether he made a mana heart yet, the answer was, nope, he still hadn't done it. But something was definitely changing. His senses got sharper. He could see, hear, and even think way better than before. When he gripped that needle-like sword and focused, for just a second, it felt like the whole world froze, and only he was moving. There was a real difference in him now. Even he could tell. And it was all because he'd finally started to feel mana in his body. Scene shift. Now he was sitting under a tree, staring at a bunch of old weapons stuck in the ground, axes, swords, daggers, all that. He started thinking about how much stronger he'd gotten, even though he still hadn't made a mana heart or reached the beginner level. He figured the reason had to be the power from that needle sword. Still, the results were pretty wild. So, our boy turned to his ghost master and asked what kind of power he'd get once he finally leveled up. The ancestor just shrugged, telling him not to get cocky about a single cool sword. The old man said Arhan was still a newbie, and he had a long road ahead. Only after building a real mana heart and becoming a true sword beginner would Arhan be as good as the person who owned the needle sword before him. The master explained that if he took one more step, following the path that started from a mana heart, he'd hit the level called Sword Walker. At that point, you could boost your body like a superhuman and set up crazy attack and defense zones all around you. People said the jump between beginner and Sword Walker was huge, almost impossible. Arhan got it and pushed for more info. He guessed the man who just shown up and moved into the territory recently was definitely a Sword Walker. His ancestor agreed and said this guy was on another level, a totally different beast compared to the losers Arhan had fought before. Our MC asked what his master would do if he were in his place, since fighting this guy sounded like a death wish. The old ghost said he would just keep an eye on things for now, and be ready for anything. He pointed out that running away was always an option if the fight couldn't be won, and sometimes that kind of smart move was the only choice. But our boy? Nope, he wasn't having it. Even if the land was trashed and empty, it was still the only place that held his family's memories. He wasn't about to ditch it. His master went quiet for a minute, then told him to get stronger, because in the Iron Kingdom, power was the only thing that mattered. Even wanting to protect those memories was kind of greedy for someone as weak as him right now. The master said Arhan needed to really feel that pain, use it to get what he wanted, and make his heart as strong as steel, so nobody could ever laugh at him again. The protagonist wondered if those words even got through to him. The story rolled forward, and suddenly, he was in a real fight. Some swordsman was facing him down, saying that if Arhan turned his back, he'd die in an instant. Our hero realized this was the real deal. His first serious test had come way faster than he expected. He thought back to the days before the fight. The new guy showed up in the territory, and Arhan made it a habit to spy on him every day. The stuff he found out was pretty weird. The village was full of empty houses, but the stranger acted as if nothing belonged to him. He never messed with anyone's stuff, just kept it super simple with the little bundle he carried. Every dusk, he stared at the sunset like he was thinking about old times, and sometimes he just prayed for hours in total silence. Watching all this, our hero came to his own conclusion about the mysterious man. So, Arhan was hiding out, watching the mysterious stranger, and talking to his ghost master. He told the old guy that the visitor looked like a knight. The master agreed, saying this dude had skills strong enough to hit the walker level. But the weird part? Even with all that power, the man still followed rules and manners, even when nobody was there to see it. The master said that kind of stubborn honor was super rare, except for knights. Our boy thought maybe that meant the guy wouldn't be a bad first neighbor. Knights were supposed to care about honor and justice, right? That was way better than all the creeps who kept breaking in before. But the master wasn't so sure. He explained that, yeah, knights chased honor, but that didn't mean they were always good guys. Honor was just whatever a knight's boss told him was right. If the boss were a scumbag, then the knight would do bad things and still call it honorable, as long as his boss paid him enough. The master dropped some straight-up truth bombs. He said a knight was basically just a sword for hire who used honor as an excuse to smash people. Knights were just executioners with expensive armor, and all that shiny gear just meant they were even harder to kill. That big title meant nothing. People had to look past the fancy name and see the real person. The master said Arhan's real power was his suspicion. This kind of shocked our boy, since he never thought of himself as suspicious. The master reminded him he'd always been like this, even as a kid. When his dad told stories about the caravan family, Arhan always wondered if they were true or just made up. Even when he got new powers and started getting cocky, his sharp eyes and careful thinking kept him alive. The master explained that suspicion meant not getting tricked by how things looked or what people said. It meant using any trick you could think of to get closer to the truth. Anyone who just trusts everything could never break past their limits. So the old guy warned him, never lose that suspicious brain, because that was his real gift as a swordsman. Our MC promised he wouldn't forget it. Because of that talk, Arhan never let his guard down around the stranger. He watched for a long time and only started making plans after he was pretty sure the guy wasn't going to go crazy and murder everyone. He decided to try asking him to be a neighbor, but dude, he was still extra careful. And then, flash, back to the present. The knight was standing right in front of him, sword out, basically saying he already knew Arhan was watching him all along. There was no escape. If Arhan turned around and ran, he would die. Our boy realized he never expected things to end up like this. Now, the story switched to Mary for a second, the stitching gypsy herself. That nickname got way more famous than she ever wanted. Because of it, big mercenary gangs tried to recruit her, and some thugs wanted to fight just for bragging rights. She started thinking she was more than just a weird sword girl. She believed she was actually strong. But, bro, that was just pride talking, and it fell apart fast. One day, she ran into a knight. He made fun of her nickname and her sword style, saying it was nothing. He grabbed her hair, making her groan in pain, and said that if she weren't a woman, she'd already be dead. He called her an insect, and said the only reason she was alive was because of his Knight Order's rules. They never killed women or kids. He told her to be grateful for their honor, then walked away like it was no big deal. That day, Mary felt like she hit a wall she could never break, a wall made by knights themselves. Later she found out that the level that the knight had reached was called Swordwalker. Back to the present day, Arhan was facing off with the knight, getting ready to duel. He remembered everything he'd seen from Mary's memories. He realized the woman was way stronger than he was now. But even she had been totally helpless against a guy like this. So, yeah, he felt real fear, more than when he was almost falling off a cliff. His heart was racing like crazy. Then, he saw it. This superhuman level where mana shot out of the body like glowing veins, boosting every attack and defense with pure willpower. This was what being a swordwalker meant. Arhan was totally blown away. The knight demanded to know why the protagonist had been spying on him. He said it seemed like Arhan might be the one attacking all the visitors, and if there wasn't a good reason, he'd treat him as an enemy. Arhan explained that he was just trying to figure out if the guy was a guest or another troublemaker. The knight didn't get it, so our hero laid it out. He had been born and raised here, but a year ago, while he was away, a dark sorcerer attacked. Everyone vanished. The village got trashed, and after that, all sorts of bandits and weirdos kept showing up and threatening everything. Arhan took care of all of them himself, but he didn't mention every last detail. He said the knight looked way stronger than anyone else, so charging in would have been suicide. That's why he watched so carefully to see if the knight was a real guest or a problem. If the guy was a guest, our boy wanted to ask him to be a neighbor. If he were a threat, he'd find another way to protect the place. That's where things stood. Arhan, sword in hand, facing a real swordwalker, not sure if he was about to make a friend or end up dead. Talk about high stakes, bro. So, after Arhan explained himself, the knight looked at him and asked if the kid really thought he could fight someone that much stronger. Our boy didn't even blink. He told the knight that this land was his whole life. Every memory he had was buried here, so there was just no way he could walk away. The knight listened and, for a second, actually seemed to get it. He told Arhan he understood the pain he'd gone through. He said if they were going to be neighbors, they should know each other's stories first. But, as a sign of trust, the knight wanted our boy to put down his sword first. He even promised to put down the sword and share his own past, if Arhan sheathed first. But hold up, our hero suddenly remembered what his ghost master always said: to get a heart of steel, you gotta push yourself to the edge of death and let your body make the mana heart on its own. That stuck in Arhan's brain. So, he apologized and told the knight he couldn't drop his weapon. He just didn't trust anyone that easily, and he needed his sword if things went bad. The knight just shrugged and said that if he wanted to kill him, the sword wouldn't save him anyway. But because of knight rules, he couldn't be the first one to put his sword away. It would be straight-up dishonor. Giving up honor was not an option. Arhan got it, but still refused to back down. He told himself he'd never again bow to fear or give up without even trying to fight. No way, bro. The knight took a long, hard look at our MC. To him, Arhan looked like some delicate kid, almost like a girl, but his body was covered in proof of brutal training. Small, but with balance so perfect that one wrong move wouldn't throw him off. His fighting style, though, totally weird. It was all about putting everything into the very first attack. Honestly, even if the knight was being generous, the kid was nowhere close to being a real swordsman. The knight could see this and figured the protagonist knew it too, but there was something intense in those eyes. Something that needed a real answer, not just a lazy slap. To avoid seriously hurting him, the knight decided he'd just knock the sword out of Arhan's hand by hitting his wrist. That was the plan. Anyway, they both went for it, weapons clashing in the air. But then, something crazy happened. The knight's attack got deflected by our boy's move. The dude was shocked out of his mind. How the hell did some rookie block him like that? He realized Arhan wasn't even a true beginner, and there was no good reason that block should have worked. But then it got even wilder. A blue light exploded out of our MC. The mana in the air went nuts, swirling around the kid like a damn tidal wave. The knight saw right away that something had just awakened inside Arhan. A mana heart, but not the soft, normal kind. This one felt hard, like actual steel. The knight's brain was spinning, but it didn't matter. He saw what was coming. A crazy attack from Arhan. With everything he had put into that one shot, our MC threw himself forward. The knight blocked, and swords smashed together again and again. In the middle of the chaos, Arhan suddenly figured out the truth. He hadn't blocked the first attack because of skill, but pure luck. The knight hadn't been trying to kill him. He just wanted to smack his wrist. That's why he'd survived. Still, our boy had managed to shove his attack into just the right spot, using every scrap of Mary's needle style and all those memories inside him. Next time they clashed though, reality hit him like a train. The knight's power was on another level. The pain that shot through Arhan was insane, like getting hit by a speeding carriage with no armor on. Every bone in his body screamed. That was the difference between them. It was almost hopeless. But in that exact moment, the thing our hero wanted most finally woke up. He had made a mana heart, the real heart of steel. Of course, that didn't mean much. He was still just a beginner, and his best attack couldn't touch the knight. But if he couldn't win by doing what everyone else did, he'd just have to make his own way. With his new heart of steel, Mary's needle mastery, and all the pain and memories he carried, Arhan decided he'd use all of it to break through somehow. Then, the story switched gears for a minute and zoomed in on this girl's old memories. She remembered the day she hit her wall, the one called Swordwalker. She was shaking so hard from fear that her body didn't want to move. But the first thing she remembered was Hegel's voice. Back on that night, Mary's old master was dying. He held her hand and told her not to forget. When someone faces a wall that feels impossible, it's usually not a real limit, just an excuse from someone too scared to fight. Walls are made to be climbed, and fear is normal. It's just the price of holding a sword. If she faced that wall and kept getting up, even after being beaten down 1,000,000 times, one day her sword would go past it. She just had to believe in herself and never look away. Those words brought her back to life. Even when she was about to break, she remembered what Hegel said. So she kept fighting the knight in front of her. In the end, she won. The knight passed out in shock, and Mary stood there, feeling like she'd finally made it. Dude, what a comeback for the stitching gypsy. So, there you have it. Arhan's first real taste of his own power, and the reminder that even the worst walls can be smashed, if you're stubborn and maybe a little crazy enough. Back to reality, our boy was deep in his own head, remembering everything that got him here. Just like Mary from his memories, he used all that pain and those lessons to hold himself together. Blue mana started swirling around him again, showing that he wasn't about to give up. The knight, meanwhile, was watching all this and thinking about life. He figured that anybody who ever picked up a sword, or anyone who lived with real determination, would eventually hit a huge wall. Not a real wall, but something in your heart, fear, pressure, that kind of thing. It feels so heavy that even lifting your foot is a struggle. Most people just want to turn around and run away. But bro, not our hero. He just kept rushing at it, no matter how many times it knocked him down. Arhan knew a lot of this was just young stubbornness, but honestly, that's what made this whole thing important. He didn't need to look perfect. He just had to keep moving forward, even if he tripped along the way. As long as there was even a tiny chance of breaking through, that was enough. The knight basically tossed all his self-doubt out the window and focused only on the basics, the way he moved, the way he breathed, and how to turn all his experiences into a single, perfect attack. That's the caravan way. You throw yourself at the world not caring if you break, because even if you crash and burn, you become something new and stronger. Our MC remembered what it was like to be terrified, but he told himself he wasn't scared anymore. He took off running, mana swirling around him, and charged the knight. In his mind, he replayed every moment he survived alone, everything that happened when his home went up in flames, and all the times when life felt too heavy to keep going. He realized the real thing to fear wasn't fire or loss. The real enemy? His own weakness. That feeling that running away was all he could do. He'd lost his normal life and his future, but he'd survived. If anybody asked if he'd finally figured it all out, he'd say he wasn't afraid, even if the world burned, even if he lost everything. Both guys went for it, launching their strongest attacks. Their swords smashed together with insane force, but the fight ended fast. Arhan's blade shattered and clattered to the ground. Reality check, he still wasn't strong enough. The scene shifted for a second, and it was like we were back in Mary's past. She was standing alone under the moon, tears running down her face, thinking about her old master Hegel. She wondered if he was at peace now, wherever he was. She remembered leaving the orphanage with nothing but his lessons and a single needle he gave her. She always wanted to live free, wander the world as he did. But the truth was, monsters way stronger than her were everywhere. She ran into walls she didn't think she could ever cross, no matter how brave she tried to be. But the one thing she knew for sure, she never turned away. Not even once. Not until the very end. If what her master believed was true, they'd meet again in the flames. And when that happened, she'd tell him her story. She'd start by telling him she wasn't scared of the fire anymore. Suddenly she saw him. Just an illusion, maybe, but it felt real enough. She broke down, ran up to him, and hugged him like she was a little kid again. Damn, that got me in the feels. Back with our hero, he was lying face down in the dirt, feeling the heat of some fire close by. He was totally out of it, thoughts bouncing around his head. He realized he must have blacked out. He woke up covered in a robe, and boom, he knew it belonged to the knight. That's when it hit him hard. He had lost. All that effort, and the result was his broken sword lying useless in his hands. He just sat there, feeling empty and totally crushed. Right then, his ghost master showed up, as calm as ever. The dude told Arhan not to be sad and called him his young descendant. He explained that what our MC just went through wasn't even a real caravan-level fight, but that didn't mean it was pointless. Losing hurt, yeah, but it mattered. He pointed out that Arhan already knew the truth. His body had finally processed all the pain and lessons he'd survived. It was like being poked by 1,000 sharp needles, but at the same time, something had changed. The protagonist realized his body now felt way stronger and more flexible, his senses sharper than ever, almost like he'd turned into some wild animal that lived by pure instinct. He was more of a battle-hardened veteran than some rookie with a sword. He finally understood why the master picked this weird, thin sword for him. It was never about easy strength or crazy skills. It was about learning from a life that refused to give up, no matter what. Even against impossible odds, that sword, and the person who used it never broke. Our boy thought that if the master had just told him this from the start, he could have saved a lot of trouble. But now he has it. He let out a little smile, all the frustration finally melting away. He wasn't just stronger, he was someone who understood what real determination looked like. So, our hero was still sitting there, mind spinning, when the knight just showed up behind him like it was no big deal. The guy pointed out that Arhan was finally back to his senses and explained he'd just gone to grab some drinking water. But then, scratching his cheek and looking all awkward, the knight admitted that things were still weird between them. He said they really needed to clear the air. Of course, our boy wasn't about to let his guard down. He grabbed his sword, ready for trouble. But his ghost master jumped in right away, telling him not to stress. The master basically said that the guy behind all this drama wasn't going to hurt him. Even the knight agreed that, after everything Arhan had survived, being suspicious was totally normal. The guy said breaking down walls between people was never easy. Then he offered to tell his own story first, hoping that might help him chill out. Things got quiet, with the tension slowly dying down. The knight started talking about why he'd come all the way out here. After a bit, he actually took off his outer clothes, which made Arhan super confused. Like, what was this dude doing? Then, finally, the knight introduced himself properly. His name was Vettel, a retired knight just wandering because he had nowhere left to go. But here's the insane part, Vettel said. He was dying. No joke, he was terminally ill and basically at the end of the road. When Arhan looked closer, he could tell this old knight's body was in bad shape. Like, the poor guy looked totally destroyed. Vettel explained that even the best priests and doctors couldn't help him. He only had a month left, tops. He told our boy he was just a sick man waiting for the end. But he asked if Arhan could listen to him, just for a bit. After all that, the mood finally calmed down, and Arhan thought about the chat they'd just had. Turns out, Sir Vettel was master with a sword, but honestly sucked at talking. The dude repeated himself a lot, and his words were all over the place. But even so, our MC could feel the old guy was being real. No fake drama, just messy honesty. So, what did Arhan figure out? After Vettel found out he was dying, he left his night squad. It wasn't because of some big heroic reason. He just didn't want to be a hassle to his friends in his last days. He came out here, looking for a spot to die in peace, on his own terms. Arhan just sat there, not saying much, but you could see the sadness on his face. His master watched and said it looked like Vettel was telling the truth. He pointed out that this knight's mana heart was basically rotting away from the inside, like poison eating him up, and once it hit his heart, that was it, game over. Then Vettel reached out, offering a handshake. He wanted to know if that was enough to be accepted as a neighbor. Our hero didn't answer right away, but then he stood up and said he knew it must have been tough for Vettel to share all that. He thanked him for being honest and finally introduced himself as Arhan. He spoke about the land's last people, the ones nobody remembered, and welcomed that dude to the neighborhood. Vettel looked super grateful and called him young master. Both dudes smiled and shook hands, making a new kind of silent friendship. Watching all this, the ghost master just grinned to himself. He figured it was time for Arhan to move on to the next level. There was only one place that really mattered. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Fast forward a few days. Our MC and his ghost master were bumping along in a horse carriage, rolling down some bumpy road. He was totally lost, saying he didn't get why they had to travel now. He knew he was getting better with a sword, and wondered why his master couldn't just teach him at home, especially since Sir Vettel was now guarding the mansion, and random thugs weren't a problem anymore. His master just clicked his tongue and roasted our boy a little, saying not even he could dodge the fallout from a criminal's mess. He asked how many times he had to repeat himself before Arhan finally got it. He explained that their caravan family was one of a kind, totally different from the rest. As long as Arhan had that steel blood in his veins, he wouldn't get stronger from regular training. He needed to go through non-stop struggle and push his body to crazy limits. Digestion of his newest sword was the most important thing right now. Their destination? The perfect spot to test all that. He described it as a place where nobody cared about your background. The only thing that mattered was if you could survive in battle. It was a place of endless, bloody fights. In his time, it even had a special name, the arena. It was a massive arena, packed with people, swords clashing like thunder, the crowd screaming their heads off. The wait was over. It was finally our poor guy's turn to step up. Time to see if all that pain and training would actually pay off. This city was called Firma. This place was loud, busy, and full of people. Like, you couldn't walk 5 steps without bumping into someone in armor or some blacksmith guy banging on metal. Sparks were flying everywhere. The city was famous for its metal and weapons. Honestly, almost every sword and piece of armor in the country probably started here. Some people even called it the Holy Land of Swords. Not bad, right? But honestly, all this stuff about blacksmiths and gear wasn't even the wildest part. The real action was in this huge, old stadium, right in the middle of the city, the arena. The arena was the main thing that brought Firma back to life. The Ghostmaster looked thoughtful and a bit nostalgic. He said the arena had a new name now, but the heat and the crazy energy hadn't changed at all. He remembered insane fights, beast versus beast, human versus beast, and different races all fighting to see who was on top. But he said the most violent fights of all were called the combat duels. Those were brutal, bro. Gladiators fought like animals, rolling in the dirt. The winner took everything, even the loser's life. The crowd? Those people were losing their minds, screaming, throwing coins, and betting on who would win. Firma was a city built on pure chaos and blood. Our hero, Arhan, was right there, listening. He thought that, if his master was telling the truth, this was probably the best place to get stronger, like, way faster than anywhere else. He even imagined eating up swords from defeated gladiators to get better. Honestly, our boy was a bit too excited. But the Ghostmaster stopped him right there. He told our poor guy that if it was really that easy, he would have made Arhan eat every sword, even the trash ones. But it didn't work like that. If he just ate every weapon, his mind would get scrambled by all the memories stuck in those swords, and he'd lose himself. The sword shouldn't control him. He needed to control the sword. Until Arhan learned to do that and opened his eyes, our boy could only eat the special swords he picked out for him. No cheating, bro. He just gave a cocky smile and told Arhan it was time to get going. So, 3 hours later, our protagonist was standing in front of the huge arena, with crowds everywhere. He went up to this arena attendant, a lady with green braids who had way too much energy. She called him Mr. Arhan and asked if it was his first time fighting there. He said yes, and she told him he had to get a player medal first. No medal, no entry. Our boy was totally confused. Like, what the hell is this medal thing? Even the Ghostmaster looked shocked. Back in his day, he said, nobody needed a medal, just throw anyone into the fight. But rules were rules. The arena attendant showed off the medal. It was a small thing with a symbol on it. She told him to get his medal and line up again. Poor Arhan was just standing there, looking lost. Now, we need to talk about the medal system. Basically, the medal's color showed your fame and fighting level. The best fighters had black or white medals, then platinum, gold, and silver. So, the black medal is the strongest one, showing the best martial artist in the arena. RMC? He looked down and saw he only got a boring old copper medal. Ouch, bro. It was just bronze, and the master thought a lot had changed. He said the place was way different from the old days. He tried to defend himself, saying that, before, it didn't matter if you were a scholar or a wild barbarian. Once you came to the arena, you just had to fight, no questions asked. Arhan thought the new system made sense, though weight classes and all. Basically, it's all about money. Also, if the arena just let everyone fight to the death all the time, they'd run out of gladiators. Plus, no one wanted to bet on boring matches where the winner was obvious. Now, pros fought pros, and newbies fought newbies. It made for a better show, and tourists from everywhere came to watch. The city got richer, and the arena became a major landmark. Another big change. Arhan explained that if you won a duel these days, you usually didn't kill the loser. There was this secret rule between gladiators. But of course, the loser's body still wouldn't be in great shape though, maybe missing an arm or leg. The master was still kind of salty. He said, everyone now is so weak, but he was also relieved. Maybe this was actually lucky for our boy. He said this would be good practice for Arhan. Fighting people at his own level has its own beauty. He then suggested they check out the city's smithies, because the swords here were much better than the ones back home. Since Arhan's sword broke easily, he should get some spares. While they were walking, they suddenly stopped in front of a big building with swords on display. They were so shocked to see weapons just sitting out in the open. He was like, what is going on here? Suddenly, an older man with a mustache who managed the place came to them. He introduced himself as Tom and explained that this was the Hall of Fame. The weapons here belonged to gladiators who had done amazing things in the arena. But the weapons were old and couldn't be used anymore. so they were shown off to honor those fighters' spirits. Then, he offered to answer any questions, saying it was his joy as manager. Suddenly, the master quickly told Arhan to ask how someone could own or take one of those swords. He looked super serious and excited. He found it. There was a sword here that our protagonist needed to devour next. There, a sword's glowing with weird purple energy, and you just knew something big was coming next. Now, our hero walked through the big entrance for fighters, acting tough, but you could tell he was a little nervous. He went down this long, kind of spooky hallway, his hand on his sword like he was trying to look cool. Silently, he thought about Tom's answer to his earlier question. Was it even possible to get one of those legendary swords behind the glass? Tom just gave him a big thumbs up and said he could, but there was a catch. If you proved yourself as a real gladiator, you could take one weapon, but only the ones that matched your metal color. So, every time your rank got higher, you gotta grab a better sword. No cheating your way to the top, move up, get stronger, take your pick. Now, our boy was eyeing two old swords that looked pretty boring to everyone else, but to him, they were calling out. That's when the Ghost Master popped up again, explaining that the sword Arhan wanted could only be his if he got to silver metal level. The weak copper thing he had now wouldn't cut it. Then he was grinning like he just told a really good joke. He said, for most people, the hall was just a bunch of rusty swords, but for our hero, it was a straight-up treasure. He told him he'd better get used to coming to the arena a lot, because now he has more reason to come. Even if it's not for training, he must secure usable swords through promotion, after all. Then, the Ghost Master got kind of wild, saying if it was up to him, he'd just rob the place and take all the swords. Our boy stared at him, shocked. But Liam quickly changed his tune. He said stealing was impossible anyway, because Tom was no ordinary old man. Arhan was pretty confused. Tom just looked like a regular grandpa, right? Nope. The Ghost Master said that old man could use mana to cover himself in armor. The dude was a sword expert, one step away from the top. Our MC was honestly blown away and asked why someone that strong would be a manager here. The Ghost Master just shrugged and said people at that level were always a little crazy. So, stealing swords from the hall? Not happening. At least, not today. Then, he switched the topic and said, even if the arena changed a lot, some things stayed the same. One big rule: people covered their faces and used fake names, so their real-life fame or shame didn't follow them. Here, you fought as a gladiator, nothing else. Arhan liked the idea. He thought, if he just had to face people as another fighter, maybe he wouldn't hesitate so much. Maybe he could be a little more free. Cut to the dressing room, where things got even weirder. Our boy was standing across from some hooded gladiator who just popped the question. What name was he going to use in the arena? He called our boy a young gladiator. Arhan was caught off guard. He didn't know he needed a fake name. The hooded man said, in the arena, nobody used their real name. All the outside stuff just made it harder to fight. He also told him to say a name he'd be most proud of, the one he'd want as his gladiator identity. Then, our hero thought back to all his time with Liam, his ghost mentor, how much he meant to him. That was it. He decided, from now on, he'd fight as Liam. The hooded man said he'd never heard that name before and asked if it was from some night story, but he didn't really care what it meant. He just wished Arhan good luck and told him to go make his first step. So, our MC, now calling himself Liam, walked towards the arena, chest out, looking fierce. He covered his face with a mask, obeyed the rules. Besides, with his new name, he feels that it was such a heavy responsibility. He now carries the title of Swordmaster as the pride of his family. Another fact that we must know is, bronze rank was the lowest of the low, bro. Fights at this level were so boring, nobody cared, except maybe gamblers, with nothing better to do. The stadium was filled with boos, not cheers, and the crowd was just there to kill time, until something better happened. Now, our hero walked out into the middle of the gigantic arena, facing a dude who was probably 3 times his size, a big, scary gladiator. The crowd just kept yelling and mocking him, calling him weak, telling him to hurry up and lose already. Not a good welcome. The Ghost Master floated close and asked if Arhan was scared. But our boy just said, as if, bro, he was fine. The Ghost Master told him that, now that he was using the caravan name, he was carrying all that history and honor. No pressure, right? Our hero's eyes were glowing, no joke, and he said that was exactly why he was going to win. Then, the announcer started yelling, hyping up the third fight of the day. He called Arhan a rookie's rookie, a greenhorn with nothing to show, making his first ever appearance as Lee Am. Yeah, the crowd was not impressed. Then the announcer introduced the big guy, Temer. This dude already had 3 wins, and was famous for being brutal. The crowd actually liked that. Temer looked at Arhan and made fun of his name, calling it weak and boring. He even said our boy wasn't worth making him use his sword on, and offered him a deal. Take off the sword and mask, do a funny little dance, and maybe he would let him live. Our boy just stared at him, not saying a word. Finally, he spoke up and said he'd heard there was a rule about not killing each other here. Temur just laughed, saying he didn't care about those rules at all. Where he was from, losers always died, and he bragged about killing 3 people already. He called it his right as the winner, and the best entertainment too. But he said Arhan was so weak, it wouldn't even be fun to kill him. He told him to at least try to make everyone laugh before he died, because that was all he was good for. Bro, talk about being rude. Our MC just stared back, not even blinking. The announcer loved the drama, saying, this battle of nerves was intense, and maybe this boring match would actually be interesting for once. The fighters took their positions. Our hero, with his needle sword, finally spoke again. He said he had a proposal, too. Mocking his name was not cool, and he demanded Temur take it back. His blue aura was starting to show, and his eyes looked like they could burn a hole in metal. He told the big guy that, if he didn't apologize, he'd make sure Temur could at least die comfortably. Hearing that, the big guy just started laughing like a maniac, saying he was so scared. Even the announcer was mocking Arhan, saying he sounded like a kid from a cheap night story. The crowd was totally against him. But when the big guy finally lunged at our boy with his massive sword, Arhan dodged like a pro. He stood there, eyes glowing, and told Temur one more time, apologize for insulting his name, if he wanted a good death. The real fight was just about to start. If you ask me, Temur was about to get a pretty big surprise. Now, his eyes went wide like he just saw a ghost, blood everywhere. He looked up at our MC with total shock and pain on his face. The crowd was just starting to realize this was not going to be a boring match. Temur was furious. He tried to snarl out something tough, calling our hero a bastard, but honestly, he looked more scared than mad. He wondered what the hell was happening. He thought this rookie was trembling like a scared kid, but now, he was the one, shaking. Temur's mind was spinning. He stared at his bloody sword and kept asking himself what the hell was going on. How could some nobody, someone who looked like he barely knew what he was doing, suddenly move like a blur and put him on the ground? He started wondering if our hero was actually acting weak, just to mess with him and create an opening. Bro, our guy went full trickster mode, and it totally worked. Then, our boy mocked him by asking, he won't call his trick cowardly, right? Since Temur said before that this fighting was not child's play. Once he heard that, Temur got even more pissed. Mana crackled around him, and he screamed that he was going to kill Arhan for this. He rushed forward, swinging his giant sword with everything he had, but our MC just kept dodging, barely, but perfectly, every time. Even Temur noticed it. He thought, this guy's dodging everything by a hair, like he could read every move. And then, in Temur's eyes, Arhan wasn't even human anymore. He imagined him as some kind of snake monster with glowing blue eyes, ready to strike. He had no idea what he was fighting, but he knew it was dangerous. Anyway, now, our MC kept attacking, moving so fast nobody could even follow. Every strike landed, and every time the big guy tried to fight back, he missed. The crowd was losing their minds. That's when Arhan struck fast. One move, and his sword was stuck right in Temur's side, glowing red. Bro, that had to hurt. Finally, Temur was on his knees, gasping for breath. His sword, totally useless, on the ground. He tried to say something, but all that came out was a scream and a lot of blood. Then, our MC kicked it away for good measure and walked up to him. Then, he made an offer. Take off that stupid helmet and dance to the beat of his claps. If his enemy did it, he will spare that useless head of Temur. Jez. What an epic finishing, right? The crowd jaw dropped. They were actually shocked by now. Even Ghost Mentor Liam was there, floating next to him. You could tell this was more intense than anyone expected. Back on the ground, Temur was finished. He could barely talk, breathing heavy, saying he'd do it, but he just needed to catch his breath. But his hand is going to take his sword again, and our hero didn't wait long. He stabbed his hand, fast, blood everywhere. Temur screamed, totally broken. Our hero just stood over him, sword pointed right at his face, and told him to be careful. There weren't going to be any more offers. The big guy finally gave up. He took off his helmet, put it on the ground, and with a broken voice, apologized for insulting Arhan's name. He begged for his life. The crowd went wild. The whole arena exploded with cheers. 2 guys in the stands were extra loud. One with a mustache was clapping and shouting that this rookie was insane, the best bronze he'd ever seen. The other dude said he was betting everything on Liam from now on. The first guy called him an idiot for not remembering the name. It was Liam, the little gladiator. Liam. Then, everyone in the arena started chanting the name. Liam, Liam. Just imagine how our MC must have felt. Up in the balcony, Tom was thinking hard. He said he always knew our boy was special, but getting this much attention in the first match was crazy. He admitted he kind of liked it, but he also worried. Too much attention in the arena could be poison, he thought. The more people watch, the more dangerous things get. A few days later, the story took a turn. Our hero was called into the arena office, looking a bit confused. The arena attendant, who was always super peppy, made a big announcement. She told him they were very impressed with his fight. Because of how awesome he was, they wanted to offer him something special, a chance to jump to the next rank right away. A silver promotion match. Our boy was sweating, not sure if he heard right. The attendant said it straight. They wanted him to take a silver promotion match. Would he accept the challenge? Anyway, since his first debut, our MC, still fighting under the name Liam. Now, he sat in the arena office looking super serious, thinking about everything that happened in the last 2 days. He remembered that he fought 3 more matches since his debut and won every single one. The way he fought? Bro, it was all about being smart and efficient. He didn't mess around, just did what he needed to win. Then, does this offer pure goodwill from them for valuing those matches? Now, here's where things got sketchy. The arena attendant was sitting across the table, smiling so big it was almost scary, and the Ghost Master was hanging out in our boy's behind, quiet as always. The attendant dropped the news. If he wanted that shiny silver medal, it was easy. All our hero had to do was fight someone the arena picked for him. At first, the poor guy looked confused, but she made it sound even sweeter. Our boy didn't even have to win. If he could just last 3 minutes, that was enough to get promoted. She said he didn't need to fight hard, just survive 3 minutes, grinning like she was handing out candy. But honestly, something about her smile was off, almost like she was hiding fangs. She even started talking about the rewards. More money, stronger opponents, all the good stuff. You'd think this was a dream deal, right? Our boy was tempted, but his gut told him something smelled off. That's when the Ghost Master dropped some wisdom. He called it rookie stomping, an old arena tradition. Basically, the arena would lure rookies with promises of promotion, then throw them into the ring with a monster, just so the audience could watch them get destroyed. It wasn't a real chance. It was like putting someone on stage for an execution, just to entertain the fans. Bro, that's cold. The Ghost Master added, if our boy doesn't wish to be humiliated, it would be right to refuse this offer. Though, a proper opportunity for promotion will be given soon enough. If he waited, there'd be a normal chance to get promoted later. But then, the Ghost Master left it up to him. Was he going to take the deal or not? Our MC didn't hesitate. He wasn't about to back down in front of all these arena people. He told them he accepted. He said he'd face whoever they picked, no matter what. Gotta admit, that took guts. Fast forward 2 days, and our boy got an official letter from the arena. His opponent's name? The Black Bride. Dude, the rumors about this person were insane. The Black Bride went to the best sword academy around, never lost a silver rank fight, and was called a total powerhouse. The academy is the premier educational institution for those with natural talent for the sword, and just having a diploma from that school meant you were basically a super elite knight. This person was on a whole other level. Now, our MC was walking through the city, thinking how he'd gotten himself into a mess, and it got worse. People said every opponent who fought the Black Bride ended up wrecked so bad, they never recovered. The Ghost Master showed up again, and basically said the arena bosses were really out for blood this time. He said with this kind of setup, even lasting 3 minutes would be almost impossible. He even teased, these days, people would just say straight up, bro, you're screwed. Then, the Ghost Master tried to tell our hero that maybe the Black Bride wasn't scarier than Sir Petel, some insane swordwalker he'd dealt with before. But he reminded him, Petel fought with honor and held back. This new opponent? No chance. The Black Bride wouldn't show any mercy. If she wanted to break him, she would. Our MC thanked him for, opened his eyes, and told him what the reality he will faced. But our MC wasn't just helpless. He thought about the special mana heart inside him, the kind of power most people could only dream about, and the mysterious memories from Mary, which might give him an edge. He figured, if he could just survive those 3 minutes, maybe, just maybe, he had a chance. Then, things went to the next level. At the road, our MC was just standing around when suddenly, the Black Bride was right behind him. He never even sensed her coming. That was freaky. He noticed her long, pitch-black hair and her unique sword from the east. He realized, yeah, this was the Black Bride, no doubt. She called him out, asking if he was the little gladiator named Liam. Our boy tried to play dumb, saying maybe she had the wrong person. But she didn't buy it for a second. She said he was making this difficult, and she drew her sword, super fast, with a cold look in her eyes. Bro, our MC was about to jump out of his skin. She told him straight. She didn't come here to fight, just to make a proposal. She wanted him to forfeit the match. She warned him not to make a dumb decision, and not to ruin his own future. If he showed up to fight, she promised he would pay the price. Our hero didn't back down. He said, what if he still wanted to fight? What would she do? The Black Bride didn't even hesitate. She just said, if he did, he was going to pay. That was it. The threat was real. Later that night, our MC went to the Hall of Fame, where Tom was chilling alone with all those legendary swords on display. He walked in and bowed, being super polite, even though it was late. He admitted it was kind of shameless, but he asked if he could take a sword from the hall for his next, definitely, not normal, match. Bro, our hero was preparing for war, and honestly, he was going to need every bit of help he could get. This next fight was going to be insane.